I can be live on LinkedIn right now.
I
Okay.
know. I'm sure there would be a way. Hold on. Let me go to
All right.
minutes.
Okay, because this actually has to go through LinkedIn. Like there's like a LinkedIn thing that we have to do.
Yeah, I don't see anything
Yeah,
happening.
yeah, it's not. Hold on. I have to go to this and then manage attendees. There's something I need to do in here. See, this is why we have to do this all in advance. Click to join. Like I don't want to join it though. I'm literally the person running it. Oh, I know how it is. Hold on, hold on. I'm gonna go to LinkedIn.
Check LinkedIn Live eligibility. Make sure
No,
you meet.
I'm definitely eligible. I've done that before.
Go to linkedin.com/video/go live/now. Okay, that's
Okay,
something else.
linkedin.com/video slash
No,
go
no,
live
no.
now.
That's to get access, which I think you've already done. Okay. In Riverside, navigate to the live stream, choose LinkedIn, connect your account. You already did that.
Yep.
And then it just says enable and start. Toggle the LinkedIn destination to on and
Yep.
press the main record button in Riverside to begin streaming to LinkedIn.
Yep.
Apparently that's it.
No, that's not it. There's another thing that's there it is. Okay, found it. Hold on. I found what I needed.
Okay.
Okay, northeast.
Oh,
Okay,
it says here, join Vanessa's live video.
join Minister Live video. Go hit it.
It popped up on LinkedIn. Okay. And hi, I see us.
Do you see us really?
We're frozen, but yes.
Well, no, we want to not be frozen though.
But we are frozen, but we are here. Inga James. Hi, Inga. She
Inga, can
says
you
we are
hear us?
live.
We really need to because you might have to hit play for us to not be frozen. I just want to make
Yep,
sure that
Inga
like
says we are live. I don't know why it's not showing for us. And
this
Nate,
is
hi,
why, by
Nate.
the way, we went on early. Everyone, it's because we knew we were gonna have this problem.
I just wonder why our video is frozen on
I think
LinkedIn.
it's probably frozen for. Okay, well, we're live on YouTube, by the way, so I
Oh,
think it's frozen. If you click
I'm
play
gonna
on
read.
LinkedIn, I think it'll start playing.
Okay, I've just refreshed. You should see how we're frozen.
I
Uh,
just need. Well, if Inga says she can hear us, then I'm happy. That's all I care about. Is Inga? You're
Inga
my
has
best
not
friend right now. I love you
Inga
so
has
much.
not said that she can hear us.
Oh,
Has
okay.
she said to you?
No, I thought you said Inga said she could hear us.
She no, she said we're live, but
All
I
right, hold
don't.
on a sec. Let me press this button.
Let's see.
Okay, so we're definitely live on YouTube.
Okay, that's great.
Okay,
I'm just gonna say
this is why we're on 15 minutes early,
for
everybody. Because
those here, is the
what a
video
comedy show.
moving or are we frozen?
No, we're moving.
We are?
Yeah, I went into LinkedIn. We're live. Inga
Really?
says we're live. Nate says we're here. Hold on, I gotta.
I just don't get why I look frozen.
Well, you don't
Oh,
need to.
now it's going in fast forward.
Yeah, okay. So, but
So,
the whole
okay.
point is that you don't need to really see
Yeah,
yourself.
so as long as we're good, I'm
The
gonna have
only
Riverside.
real question I have at this moment now is how we see the chat because I just realized
I
Nate
see
said
the chat.
you see the chat.
I
Okay,
see the
so
chat.
maybe
Yeah,
if I
so
click in here and just
I
hit.
clicked into the live and now I can
There we
see.
go. Okay. All right, guys. Okay, we're getting here. Look at I see the chat now. Hi, Nate. Hi, Inga. Good to see you both. Okay,
This is the
and then
first
I
time we're doing a LinkedIn live like this, so we're just doing some testing. So
yeah, we're doing. It's actually really fun. Where because I think we may be able to actually do some even cooler lives afterwards.
indeed.
Okay, I found our notes for today. I was like, I lost our notes. I was
I know I
so.
have too many screens open. I'm like, I don't see now I understand why I need a second monitor because I'm like,
Well, so yeah, my problem is even when I have a second monitor, I don't use the second monitor, and so
yeah.
it's like, all right. So I just wanted to make sure that I can see the chats on YouTube. Though no one's really on YouTube, so I'm not super concerned about that. But here we are. Okay, how is everybody doing today? Tell us how you feel about Workday. I want to know how you feel about Workday. I wonder if I
Are
can
you
put like
using Workday already? That's my other question too. Or are you aware that there's a Workday transition coming maybe in your organization?
organization.
Yeah. Like what brings you here? Right? That's the
Yeah,
question.
that's really, I mean, I think that's ultimately the question is what brings you here. Because
Yes.
Tyra and I have worked with organizations over the last, couple of years, all in varying stages of Workday. Some of them are just talking about it, like, they've only just started the conversation. And the issue is less about, oh my God, we're switching to Workday, and more about like, oh, we haven't even finished getting our stuff together from like our previous migration to our previous things. others are in the throes of it and like, I don't even know what to do. Like, are we going to get past this point where we can't invoice? Right?
Right?
Like,
Is this the new reality where,
is
it's like we have these great systems, but are we going to go back to, the 90s with paper? What's happening?
oh my God. And, and so when we were at conferences, this comes up a lot because it's usually, and actually, before I jump into that, isn't it interesting how there's not a lot of sessions at conferences about Workday?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the conversation that we have on the side is about Workday a lot. And it's just occurred to me just now as you and I were talking, because we talk about Workday a lot, but there aren't a lot of like tactical Workday transition conversations that say, okay, you're moving from PeopleSoft to Workday or Banner to Workday. And like,
Right.
these are the things that you're going to face.
Yeah.
What about you, sis? What have you found over the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I feel, well, first of all, for conferences, I mean, it's kind of funny
We're
because
not actually doing the session right now, people. We're just talking. We're going to start for real at noon.
at 12. Yeah. So
Yeah.
7 minutes to go. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I mean, I'm the chair of the curriculum committee for NQR Region 1. And, and you've been on the planning committee for the sessions that we put together for the meetings. And you're right. Like, I don't feel like we really see content that's about transitions into new accounting systems. So Inga had just said she wasn't sure what Workday was. So Workday is a like, how would you describe it, Vanessa? It's like basically functions like PeopleSoft. So it's your accounting system. A lot of people,
It's
there's
an ERP, it could
HR
be a
modules.
CRM, manages your finances, manages your HR, it takes the place of PeopleSoft in a lot of spaces.
Yeah, Banner, PeopleSoft,
The
Oracle.
I think the way to think about Workday is this, right? Is that over the years we've had multiple different types of software to manage different areas of our organizations, depending on the size of the organization that you have. You might have PeopleSoft that has a lot of different modules in it. You've got your HR module, you've got your finance module, you've got your compliance module, like all of the different types of things. And PeopleSoft's been around for decades. And Workday has a new engine. It's a different way of approaching the same problems. And so it's a software that the intention is to sort of create a larger, more integrated software system between the various departments and various organizations. I don't think it's a solution for all organizations. Like, there's a certain size element that you need to have before Workday becomes a relevant solution for you. So it's usually going to be in larger organizations. You're not going to have a small biopharma implementing Workday.
Right.
So that's something else to think about related to that. What do you
Yeah.
think, Sai?
I love Workday. So, I mean, as someone who has used a number of systems over the years, I mean, we've used, PeopleSoft. I remember way back in the day, Document Direct was that one of the reports that came out from PeopleSoft. Banner, Lawson, used all sorts of different systems for grants management, financials, and I will say Workday is by far my favorite.
Yeah.
I think it has such tremendous reporting power, and I love that the information is so easy to get to. So let's say, I mean, of course, it all depends on what kind of modules your organization gets, but, as someone who does crisis management, post-award cleanup, one of the things that I'm often doing is I'm looking up old cost transfers or old labor cost transfers. Being able to type in like the journal entry number and have it
Yeah.
pull up an actual image of everything, right? All the documents, all the backup, the face page, the signatures, the dates, everything that you can think of that you would need if you're like doing an audit or you're reviewing, allowable costs or transfers onto an account, you can so quickly see. The fact that their reports come out in Excel is also a huge advantage because, if you're building a spreadsheet, so I just built a custom spreadsheet that's automated for a client. That's huge because think about the amount of time people spend just manually keying in information into their reconciliation systems for communicating with investigators. Having all of this information come out in Excel is an amazing way for people to be able to quickly get real efficiency in their work, but also tremendous analytical power. So I'm a big fan of Workday as a platform, especially for organizations that have research. Very, very good system.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
If you
While
can
we're
survive the implementation.
surviving the implementation is the hardest. Okay, so we're about 4 minutes away from starting, where we're going to introduce ourselves officially and do all the things. But just wanted to, any of you who are here, I see we have 5 people here. Hi. Feel free to please share this. I think I'm one of them. So as I just realized, share this with your friends, share this with your colleagues, put this on your feed. This is one of the bigger conversations that's happening in research administration right now in organizations across the country is this the change in software that is further exacerbating other issues that exist within research administration. So I think one of the reasons why Syra and I want to talk about this today is that we've talked about research administration in so many different capacities. Finding new jobs, building relationships, PI relationships, submissions, post award, pre award, whatever. But it's interesting because at the same time, we have to be able to do all of those things, do the work we need to do, and at the same time, we are dealing with giant infrastructural changes that disrupt the regular workflow of things and make it easier for us to make mistakes in all of these other arenas.
Yeah.
And Workday is a really big one because it is over the last 5 years, it's really sort of started to take over just about a lot of the bigger organizations. It has a lot of functionality. And the truth is, I'm with Syra. I'm actually with you on this. I like Workday a lot. I think one of the challenges in Workday is really about, you mentioned the modules and the modules that you select to include. A lot of times people who struggle with Workday are struggling with Workday because either there is an implementation challenge that exists there, or there are modules that may not necessarily be there or connect, and that creates a challenge. And so some of those things can be in their infrastructural and institutional decisions that cascade down. But even when you take those things into consideration, I think that because of the way the data are displayed and shared and the way you access it, you can in post create systems like the thing you were just talking about, the automated spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You can create post solutions that will allow you to take the data to be able to play around with it to get what you need to in a more expeditious way, just because of how it's not the word disseminated, produced, how it's produced and given to you. Yeah.
It's that raw data. It's the access that you have to that raw data and the format that it comes out in. It really gives you tons of power in terms of, whether you're building custom spreadsheets or using Access databases. I don't even know if people use Microsoft.
Oh my God, I'm sure somebody somewhere is using Access, and it's probably like, oh my God, please be using something else.
I know. Actually, I really do wonder. Does anyone know, is Microsoft Access still a product?
I'm gonna actually look that up right now. Is Microsoft Access still a product? Because I think that counts for something in the world somewhere.
And then we're right at noon in about 20 seconds, Vanessa, so we can do our introduction.
Okay, go ahead. Why don't you introduce yourself and introduce the thing while I look up if Microsoft Access is still a thing.
We have to focus on what's important, right, is Microsoft Access. All right, so hello, everybody. My name is Syra Valley. This is my sister, Vanessa Konecki. We are both research administration consultants. I specialize in post-award crisis management, so that means helping organizations who are experiencing either grants that haven't been looked at in a really long time due to prolonged vacancies, due to transitions to new financial systems like we're going to talk about today. I go into those institutions and try and help get things back to a stable state in terms of post-award management. Vanessa?
Hi, I'm Vanessa Konecki, Syra's sister, and one of the things that Syra and I talk about a lot is what are the things that we're often called in to help people with, and how can we mitigate those things in advance, right? Because if it's actually, as much as even though we're consultants, it's actually better for you if you don't get to the point where you need us, right?
Right.
If you're not in a situation where you're like, oh shit, because we're crisis managers. So like, if you're hiring us, chances are you've got something big, a big problem, some sort of a bigger challenge that you're like, I've been bashing my head against this for a little while, and I could use another set of eyes or something like that, right? But that usually means you've been suffering for a long time, right? So that's so what are some of the things that we notice or that we've observed or that we've seen over the years that can mitigate a lot of those things? And the biggest one, because for us, is software. And Workday right now is the biggest piece of software in terms of where these conversations are coming from. And when any organization does a migration, there's usually a lot of anxiety. Syra and I have been doing software migrations for over decades now, like way longer,
a long time.
Longer than we've been research administrators. We've been doing software migrations. We were there in the great Y2K. Remember the great Y2K where we went to every single computer at Emerson College, every single one.
Yeah, I remember Y2K.
A long time, and updated them for Y2K. So, but even before that, we were doing software migrations. And one of the things that has been consistent, it hasn't changed in 3 decades, is that there's a lot of anxiety. Where there can be problems, there usually will be problems. you can, and three, the most important is you can mitigate a lot of the more obvious problems by taking some steps in advance to solve for them.
Yeah.
And so this conversation that we wanted to do today was sort of just to talk about, generally speaking, and this is what Sarah and I do when we're bored, is we sit and talk about Workday. I swear to God, that's what we do. We wanted to be like, you know what, let's talk about some of these things. So we're like, oh my God, I wish people knew, or I wish you could help. And so we're like, why don't we do this? So without further ado, we're going to get this show on the road. Let me just check to see if we have, oh my God, I have too many windows open, Sai.
I know. I have three actually. I was able to narrow it down.
Well, I lost the one that I had open with questions in LinkedIn.
Well,
So
I'll start. So, is Workday really as scary and terrifying as it seems? So, that's our very first question. And of course, for anyone who is here, if you have questions that you'd like us to address, please feel free to leave them in the chat. So, Vanessa, is Workday really as scary and terrifying as it seems? In all
I
the
think
years
change
you've
is
worked-
scary no matter what. Like I'm terrified of change. I hate it. So absolutely it's scary. It's absolutely terrifying as it seems when you first look at it because you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
But
And
what?
I think the other thing is this is something I've encountered a lot with clients is that they don't love the systems that they are already using, but they would still pick those over change.
Yeah.
Because it's like the discomfort you are comfortable with, right? It's hard to transition to a new software system because you've become the expert at navigating problems with a system that may or may not fulfill all of your needs, but it's what you know. And so the idea of a new unknown that's completely unknown is terrifying.
Well,
I
also,
think
what if this unknown is worse than the known that you
exactly.
know is already bad, right? So devil you know. So
Exactly.
I can't lie. Like, yes, it's scary because anytime we move into something new, it's scary. That's just sort of, I mean, we're designed that way. That's how we stay alive. But, in the context of other things, so for example, if your appendix ruptures and you have to have a surgery to remove your appendix, that's also very scary. However, the removal of that appendix is what's going to let you live for much, much longer and have a much better life moving forward. So you still kind of got to take the appendix out,
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is scary, but, a lot of the symptoms, one of the things, like you said, the software that a lot of organizations have still isn't working. Some of the systems that we have aren't working. And even before, like, if you go back to, say, 3, 4 years ago, we were talking about a lot of the problems that we were having. And in order for us to solve it, we knew we had to try something new. And Workday is something new. And
Yeah.
that's why it is more uncomfortable than a lot of the other things that we've tried in the past, because it's not just a reskin of the same old thing.
It's not more of the same. It's really different. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it amazing.
Yeah. I think another thing that people struggle with is job insecurity, which I understand because, when we're living in this world where artificial intelligence is kind of, you cannot show up to work and not hear AI at least once a day. Like, I feel like it's become such a part of our everyday existence. And there's also a lot of talk about how these enhancements in software are they replacing people? And I think that's a valid concern that a lot of people are like, well, especially if you're really used to and you've been kind of like a champion or, you really understand a system that might be really archaic, but you've done a lot of research and so you kind of understand how to use that. I think it can create this sense of insecurity that a lot of people are facing right now, worrying about how software or artificial intelligence can be disruptive in a bad way to feeling secure in your role. I personally don't think that's the case. I think with Workday, it is designed and the way it functions is really to enhance your contribution. It just makes the work that you do in research administration that much more comprehensive, that much more meaningful. It really is more, I would say, a software system that allows you greater transparency into the numbers. And greater ability to extract data to then apply automations, interpretations, graphics, run rates, projections, whatever it is, reporting, whatever it is that you need to do. So I really see Workday as an ability to level up, right? So the information that it's going to give you and the insight that it's going to give you into your PI's portfolios is going to make your job, is going to make you even more critical. Like, I'm a big believer that there is no replacement for a research administrator. Our job is so incredibly nuanced, and it depends, right? I mean, I don't know how many people we have in the room, but how many of you say that and how many times a day do you say it, right? It depends. So I really think that it's a tool to be excited about. because even though it does have a lot more power behind it than some of the systems that we're used to using in research administration, I do think that it's really just that. It's a tool for you to be more of everything in your job.
Absolutely. I think, so if you think back to like going back to how we've been doing things for a long time. So let's talk about Workday related to, let's first talk about why people are switching, because like I think there's a few layers here. The first is why is everybody switching? Right? Why are we finding this new software? A lot of people have been using their various software systems for a long time.
Yep.
You use PeopleSoft, use Lawson, use Banner, use Oracle, whatever it is that you've been using, chances are your organization has been using it for a decade or longer. So at this point, most of your life experience with research administration has been in the particular software that you're currently
Whatever environment you're used to.
Yeah. I think having done this for a long time, one of the things that we kept finding over the years was we needed new and better ways to manage data.
Yeah.
Right? New and better ways to access data, new and better ways to collate data. There's too much of it.
Yeah.
Too many different variables that we care about at any different point in time. Like, and going back to what you were saying, like you and I may need to know certain variables about a particular research fellow for a particular duration of time on a particular project, right? And then we need to discern a lot of things related to that require contextual information. And if you have access to just a database of a ton of information that lets you play around with it and find what you're looking for, you can solve that because you can contextually keep changing your parameters and updating and updating and updating. You just have to play with the data. AI can't do that. AI cannot adapt while it's working to decide and change on adapting variables because it doesn't know what variables it needs to adapt on. So in the old days, when we were having to solve for a problem like this, we would have to manually go and get all this information from a variety of different systems, variety of different places, paper, electronic, so on and so forth. And the goal for a comprehensive system like this is to create a database that allows us to leverage technology to get access to all of the information faster so that we can spend most of our time on the analytics and doing the actual work rather than data entry and hunting through papers and filing things. And really that is, I think, where the benefit is, because a lot of that busy work and I'm curious to know what you think about this, because a lot of that busy work has actually become the work for a lot of RAs.
It's very true. Yeah. And I think that's like, well, if I'm not doing this, what am I going to be spending my time on? But I have never met, and actually I'm really curious from what the audience is going to say here. I have never in my 25 years met an RA who said to me, oh yeah, I feel like I have really good control over my work-life balance. And oh wait, someone is saying something here. There seems to be a different link out there. I was waiting over there. Some of the waiting for a host to start event message.
Oh, really? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, Vanessa will take care of that.
I'll take care of this right now.
Yeah. So I've never met an RA who has said, I have great work-life balance. I would change nothing about my, my job. I feel great, right? I always feel very balanced. I feel like research administrators are constantly like ER doctors, right? We're always dealing with a crisis. There's always something that comes up. We're always feeling behind on something. Even if we're great at our work, there's always another thing that's coming up that we're like, oh my gosh, I really need to get to this. Oh my gosh, I really need to get to this. So I think we've just become so used to that, right? We've gotten really comfortable with living in this space of there's always something else that's on my list to do. But I think a system like Workday really helps you have more control over some of those routine functions. So for example, how much time do you spend on doing your reconciliations for the data entry part, right? So I'm talking about like you go into your system, you look at the budget, you look at your expenses, your current period, your year to date, and you go in and you enter all the information, right? So there's a fair amount of that manual labor that's involved. Even for organizations that use in-house ERPs that have some reporting structure through, I think it's called, like, I can't remember what it's called. But anyway, there are some systems that, do like in-house reporting. Even those still require that human interaction, right? You're going in there and you're actually doing something. So what if there was a way, right, to take that information out of Workday and it's all automated, right? So you're not spending any time doing data entry. So for me personally, let's say, just to give you an example, if I was spending 15 hours a week doing data entry just to get information from point A to point B so that I can then take that information I've entered and do my analytics, by using the data from Workday and automating it, I'm able to now shave that 15 hours a week down to 3. That means I have more time to do all the other things that are normally making me feel super overwhelmed and behind, because now I'm not spending my time doing data entry. So systems like Workday really give you that power. So here's another example, right? All personnel reports. How many of you have NIH grants where you have to do all personnel reports for, every budget period you're reporting on in the RPPR, right? This can take a lot of time. In the old days, when we would go in, we'd be printing out from PeopleSoft or from Document Direct or whatever it is, we'd be counting, we'd be looking to see everyone's salary, we're manually calculating, how much they're going to be working. We're looking for transfers and we're saying, okay, what did I transfer and who was that transfer for and how much effort does that come to, right? So it's a lot of manual work to do these all personnel reports. With Workday, because of the way the data comes over in an Excel format, you can literally do your all personnel report in, I'd say, 10 minutes. So it really does give you that more precise compliance oversight because you have that data available so easily. What's up, sister?
Nothing. It's just the weirdest thing ever. Like, we're live.
Just paste the link for the video in the event. That's what I would do. I would just go to the
sorry, you
event.
don't understand. The link is like this. Something weird is going on with LinkedIn in general. Like, Nancy Block just put the link there, and the link is just. It's not. It's. I'll take care of it. Keep going. Keep talking. It's just, it's super fucking weird what's going on. You know what else I'm going to do, though? I'm actually also going to post this link.
Hi, Nancy. Hi, Sarah. Patrick, thank you for letting us know, Patrick. Really appreciate it.
Patrick, you're amazing. I'm also going to put this other link in here if anybody wants to try this. This is, I don't know what this is going to do, but just keep talking, sis. Keep talking.
So one of the things that I would really, and this is something I've mentioned to clients, if you are transitioning into Workday, or actually, and I'm gonna step back and say it doesn't even matter if you're transitioning to Workday, maybe you're transitioning to another system. This is going to apply no matter what. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make is trying to use old reports and Excel files and retrofit them, right, to work with Workday. Because you're inevitably going to end up spending more time because you're trying to get the data to fit into an older, like a spreadsheet, for example, that was designed for another system. You're going to make more mistakes that way. You're much better off spending the time to create custom brand new reports, brand new Excel documents, brand new recons, RPPR templates, the works, rather than trying to make your old forms fit your new process. It just never works out. And then you have broken spreadsheets. Take this as an opportunity to really look at your, your reconciliations, your reporting, your templates, all those things, to take a look at them again, because it's better to start from scratch than it is trying to back into the new system that you're using. The second thing is to remember that as your software changes, make sure you're looking over your policies and your procedure documents. Make sure that they're all referencing the right software systems. Make sure that the forms that you're using are compatible with your new software system. These are kinds of like the preparatory things that you should really do to save yourself time later. Third, remember that there probably will be an overlap period where you're going to have to be using data coming from two different systems. I've observed that when there's Workday data being, data from older systems being migrated into Workday, they kind of come over as like a lump sum number. And so you're losing all of that granular detail that you might need for reporting. So there could be a period of time where if you have grants that cross budget periods between two financial systems, that you're going to have to remind people to look at both when they're doing reporting or compliance work to make sure that they're picking up the granular details that are needed from both systems, as opposed to only looking at the lump sum data that's coming over from Workday. All right, so I have
Sister, nice job. I'm going to jump in now. Thank you. While you were doing that, I'm going to answer Nancy's questions. Nancy has a question in there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So Nancy was actually asking about what do you do if you don't have access to financials, and I asked a clarifying question because there's a difference between. There's a couple of different circumstances. There's a circumstance where you don't have access because Because one of the things that a lot of organizations are doing as part of their change from Workday to PeopleSoft, or PeopleSoft to Workday, or whatever to Workday, is creating new security groups. And so as they do that, a lot of people who historically had access to certain things no longer have access to certain things. And that's actually happening all over the place, where it's like you may have been able to see HR information where for everyone who was in research in an organization, for example, let's say because of your role as a research administrator, then when the Workday comes in, it allows for more granular authorization where now you can only see the salary for the research group of people under your umbrella of responsibility. So you may manage like archaeology, but you can't see musics, the HR for music, which is appropriate, but if archaeology and music have to be working together and you need to see salaries and so on and so forth, it makes a little difficult.
That was a tough adjustment, I think, for people is, when you're in research, especially now, because there is a lot of this translational research, right? People are crossing departments. If you are in the cancer center, you might be working with pathology, you might be working with hematology, oncology, and orthopedics, right? You may have so many different collaborators and supporting people from all those different areas. So if you're the research administrator and you're trying to look up someone's base salary to calculate their, say, effort for an all personnel report, but you're in cancer and that person is in orthopedics, it might slow you down because you're not going to have that ability to just, because of the security access, you're not going to have any visibility into that person. Now you have to wait. So what happens if that person who's the RA is on vacation, right? And you can't get that information and you don't know who to go to. So those are some of the things, like that's one area that I feel like I understand the reasoning behind it. But I do think it creates a layer that we're not used to in this industry of access to information because of security is a little bit more strict than what it has been historically. So that has been something. The other thing is too, I noticed this, is that if you look up, and again, this is a security, how they set up all the security settings. But if you have, a journal that you weren't involved in any of the account numbers, right? The internal account numbers, you may not necessarily see it because you're not the one you're not assigned to any of the cost centers that are the internal accounting numbers that are tied to that grant. So you can't see it. So you may not realize that there is, in fact, backup somewhere. You just don't have access to it.
You just don't have access to it.
Yeah. So it would be much more helpful, actually, I think, if in Workday, instead of just turning up nothing, it just said you don't have access. Right. So
right. Instead of like nothing. Well, and then there's the other one. So which is a problem and this is the one I saved that for a second because that's the one that I think creates more anxiety for all of us. And it is what it is. But alas, it is what it is. But is when there's the transition, and this has happened more times than I care to admit, but it's just part. So don't worry, everybody. This is okay. That you don't have access to your financials, or the access that you have is like the numbers aren't correct. So when the data migrates over from whatever your previous software is, so Nancy, you mentioned Data Watch, some people PeopleSoft Banner, whatever it is. Typically, they'll do like a mock transfer first. Just to make sure that everything's all okay. But I have seen this not just with Workday, like this has happened before, where data comes over and something goes very wrong.
Right.
And so sometimes the numbers are all wrong, the encumbrances can be all wrong, the obligations can be wrong, POs that were closed can randomly open, things get double paid. Like there's about 3 to 6 months where you're going to feel like the world is crashing out from under you. And that is where Syra, and I'm going to give it to her in a second to talk about this, because that is where having the infrastructure to create the rails that make you feel safer on it. Like if you've already switched over, then it's too late to create the rails, but you can build them as you're going.
Yeah.
Right. And it may depend on what information comes at what time. So you may have 2 months where everything's a mess. You can't do transfers, things aren't posting. After that's over, you'll be swimming in the chaos, which is honestly my favorite part. My favorite part is right after the storm when you're swimming in the debris. So Syra, this is like where you are. This is like your thing. So at that moment, share a little bit about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, so I think in preparation for migration, this is a big deal, right? Like your migration is only going to be as successful as your preparedness for it. Now, some of this is going to be outside of your control, right? The organization as a whole is going to be doing and taking their actions to work directly with the software developers or the implementation teams to make sure that on their end, right, like whatever data is actually being migrated, all that's happening. But you as a research administrator actually can still do a lot to make your transition more streamlined. So here's number one. And this stuff takes time because you're going to be doing it while you're already doing your other work, right? So it's not like you just suddenly carved out an extra 20 hours a week, right? This is going to be something that you're doing in addition to like, your regular work. So that's why I really recommend making your list of to-dos early. And actually Vanessa and I can collaborate on this and post something about it, but just so that you have some, something to start with. Number one, really be thinking about those grants that you have that have modified total direct cost components, especially with things like equipment and subcontracts. Make sure that you are up to date and very well organized on what invoices you have paid to your subcontracts across all of your projects and how they are currently allocated in your general ledger. Why? If your reconciliation is, let's say you transition at the beginning of the new fiscal year, right? Let's say, or calendar year, let's say your beginning of your year is January, right? And you're transitioning January. If you do your financial reconciliations for December, you go in and you enter the budgets exactly as they show in your system, and you enter in all of your expenses exactly as they are in the system, and you have your reconciliation of all your subcontract invoices and how they're paid between over 50,000 or 25, depending on where you're at with those NIH guidelines or whatever the sponsor is that you're working with. You now have a true anchor point that you can look at, and you can say, okay, when the new reports come out in the new system in January, I'm going to pull the report for this grant number, and I'm going to compare everything because I know that what it looked like in December was exactly correct. So if your reconciliation through December is accurate, you can now actually do a comparison to make sure that the migration was successful and that all of your information for year-to-date expenses is posted to the right MTDC categories. And you're not going to find out 6 months from now, oops, there was a bunch of money that was misallocated, right? To say subs over 25K or over 50K when it should have been under, and you should have had indirects on those. So that's number one. Really reconcile those grants. And that's why I'm suggesting that you set up that process now, because it's going to take you a lot of time, and you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough of a runway to do that work. The second, if you have any invoices that are pending, this is a big one. If you have paid an invoice, but it has not posted to the ledger before the migration happens, make sure in each and every tab of your spreadsheet that has a grant with a pending invoice, have something. Have a spreadsheet with a list of all the pending invoices that didn't post, whatever it might be. Because what happens sometimes is the invoices get stuck in the process of transitioning and they just poof, disappear. And then because it was in between systems, you're like, wait a minute, I've lost track. Where is it? So this will give you the ability to say, it's been 3 months now and I still don't see this invoice as paid in the new system. You will have the PO number or you will have the invoice number. You'll be able to track, find it, and either resubmit it or have your accounts payable department find it and give it back to you. Third, really look at people's salary allocations. This is a big one because when the system gets migrated, people can just disappear. So you want to make sure that in the new system, like, so when you're transitioning from say Banner or you're transitioning from PeopleSoft, whatever, and you're going into Workday, where were people supposed to be charged? That way you can actually go in and look up every single person in Workday, and you can make sure that their allocations match exactly what you were expecting so that there's no surprises. And then you're not looking 6 months later realizing, oh my gosh, this person's salary has been wrong this whole time. And now I need to go back and try and fix it. Fourth, check your indirect costs. Make sure that whatever you're looking at in December, right? If you're transitioning in January, look at what those indirect costs were at the end of December, right? What rate was it charging at? How much money had you collected in that grant? Then in January, check. Make sure that the indirects are correct, right? That it's the right rate. Check, make sure it's, whatever it is, 80%, 30%, whatever your indirect cost rate is, make sure that's there and make sure it's actually calculating correctly and that all the expenses that you're expecting for the indirect line are accurate. And having that anchor point from the month prior is really going to help you have that faith in the system that everything migrated the way that you expected. So those are kind of the four. Oh, and fifth, actually, get ahead of your closeouts if you can. So if you have grants that are like they've just been sitting there and they haven't closed out yet for whatever reason, try to get them closed as soon as you can, because then you don't have to even think about them, right? So once you've moved into your new system, they've already been closed. You don't have to think about going in and double checking and make sure everything posted correctly. It's all done. So those are my top five suggestions for preparation for migration as a research administrator. Do you have anything to add, sister?
Yeah, so I think also the other things to think about in terms of you were saying how doing all these things in advance is important. But Nancy, you mentioned that you don't have access to financials right now. The change happened on 9/30. This actually puts you in the perfect time period for you to be able to do the, because like technically it's prep time, right? Because you don't have access to the new financials, so you can leverage that to set everything up in the highest risk areas. One of the things is that like we can worry about 800 things going wrong, but there is a likelihood of some things going wrong more than others. So you can't really mitigate for everything.
No, you
But this
cannot.
list that we just gave you, or the Sire just gave you, is the good list to start with, because those are the ones that are the highest risk. Those are the ones that are most likely to happen, and those are the ones that as soon as you have access to what you need to, you can go look and check. You can then make it better for yourself in the future, because future you is not going to have to deal with all of the cleanup on these big areas, right? Because like we can't deal with all of the life gas invoices that posted to the wrong PO. There's 700 of them, and they all amount to $320. But there's so many of them, right? And that's a lot of work to do all the hunting and the chasing, and the risk is low. But the risk on like 3 subs with 2 invoices equaling 50,000 is so much higher. So it's about prioritizing. And that, I think, when you come to a transition, and this is why actually this is important, is because when you shake, I wish we were in a room right now so I could get a raise of hands. You can all raise your hands where you're sitting. How many of you have had to do a renovation of a space in your house, or where you're like, I'm going to clean up the closet or the garage or whatever it is, that the kitchen. I'm going to go and reorganize and clean up and do all the things. It doesn't matter what you do, it's just going to shake out. That's what happens when you go through the cutlery drawer you haven't looked at and pulled out in 20 years. And the truth is that a lot of the systems and the stuff that we're doing right now is layers over layers over layers of many years. So the fact that things are getting shaken out isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually an opportunity to say, okay, this shook out. What does this shakeout tell me? Right? And let's say, for example, while you're doing this, you discover that, oh my God, this account is actually much lower than I thought in funds, because the subcontract invoice, and once you do all of that math to get it ready for the migration, as we're calling it right now, you realize that, right? And so because you realize that, you're going to go and do that now for every other grant that you have to make sure, and find that all the others are fine, and this one you caught just in the nick of time, right? Better to catch it now than to catch it once you've already spent another 50,000 on it, and now you're in deficit discovering it later on. And so this allows you to shake out a lot of mistakes that don't show up, not even necessarily mistakes. Like, let's be real here. We have a lot of work, like so much work. Things slip through the cracks that are not a mistake. It just slipped through the cracks, and it happens. These are the systems that will allow us to both catch it in the past, but then to put signposts in it so we don't miss it in the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing too. And this is something when I was in management that was really important for me to share with my team, was that, first of all, bad news doesn't get better with time, right? It's not a fine wine. So if you catch something, this job, there's always going to be something, right? Even the best, most perfect RA is not going to bat 100% every time, right? Even the best sports players don't. Things happen. So this is a great opportunity. A transition to a new software system is just a perfect opportunity to be looking for things. And I was always reminding people, don't worry, when you identify a mistake, don't worry about oh my gosh, I feel so guilty. That is not helpful. What is helpful is to say, oh, you know what? This happened. Why did it happen? What can I change about my processes, my self-notifications, my project management, my reminders, whatever it is? What can I do differently to prevent this from happening again? Implement that and move on. There is just no prize for feeling the most guilty. There just isn't. And so it's the better path for everyone, for the organization, for you, is to just say, hey, notice something. here's what happened, here's what I'm going to do to fix it for the future, and then everybody moves on. So I think using these transitions as an opportunity to really evaluate. Like when I go in, I'm assuming I did everything wrong, right? I'm like, I did everything wrong, because it puts me on that hyper alert so that I'm really paying attention to my own work, and I can see my own mistakes. Like, what did I do wrong? How do I fix it for the future? So I think that's actually a really important thing, is that when you're in this phase, try to take judgment of yourself and your peers out of the mix, and really just focus, use it as an opportunity for like a evaluation to improve processes. It's not about the person, it's about the process.
I actually want to touch on that because it's actually, I know Syra is an incredibly competent RA, and she knows I'm a very competent RA. And so when we share things with each other, we know that the first thing is not going to be, God, Syra, you're such an idiot. God, Melissa, you're such an idiot, right? Like, that's not the first thing. And I think it's really important because we as human beings are social creatures and community creatures. There is it's very difficult to feel like, shit, everyone's going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing. So first of all, you do know what you're doing. Imposter syndrome is real. But when something like Workday comes along, a new piece of software comes along that shakes everything out, anything that got missed was going to pop out. So I think that that's really important, to remove judgment of yourself. And even if you may not have had this conversation with everyone, so you may not have had someone say to you, I will remove judgment. Just assume that for yourself, for your own peace of mind, right? Like,
Yes.
that's really what will help you enormously.
So Nancy had a question.
Yeah.
She says, how do you suggest we communicate with leadership about changes we in research need in Workday? So I'm going to address first, and then Vanessa, I'll let you go. So Nancy, I actually am going to answer your question with a question, which I know is annoying, but is this in relation to changes that you want represented in Workday? Meaning I did not have X functionality in the old system and I want it in Workday? Or is this, I've already tested out the Workday modules that have been chosen by the organization, and now I want more changes, edits, tweaks, whatever. So I think it's important to kind of understand which category this question falls into. Is it, I want this in Workday because I didn't have it in my old system? Or is it, I've already seen the new Workday system and it's not enough and I need more? So we'll give Nancy a second to just.
Yep, and I'm frozen, so
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Yeah, you can definitely hear me.
But I don't know why you're frozen.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It'll sort itself out.
That is very odd.
This is like technology that we have today is a nightmare.
Yes.
What was I going to say though? Oh, I was going to say something related to. We were talking about you had a clarifying question, because I think there's two different ways to think about this. There is, and I think both of them are relevant, right? So like, often if you're, okay, why don't you talk while I fix this, because it's driving me crazy. It's going to drive me freaking insane.
I mean, I think that, what I will say is this. Vanessa disappeared. I hope that I am still the host, because with Vanessa gone.
I'm here. We're good.
Okay. So Nancy said thank you, Nancy. So Nancy's saying she needs more edits, tweaks. Okay. So, I would suggest, if you have a working group, I don't know, a lot of organizations will have like a post-implementation working group for different areas. So like HR will have theirs, and then research admin will have theirs, pre-award may have theirs. So is there any kind of group that has been assembled to test Workday in your dedicated area to then collate feedback and provide it? Or is it just everyone's out there for themselves at this point? I would say that if there is a group, I would be creating a shared document where everybody's going in and either adding their comments, like this is an error, and be very specific. I think this is another really important thing. Vanessa and I have worked in the software development side, and the more detail you can provide about the issue that you're facing, what screen you're in when you're looking at it, screenshots if they're available, the more information that you can share, the more the software developers are going to be able to let you know, like, yes, this is something we can do, or no, this is something we can't do. So I think number one is be very detailed. Have a column that basically says, look, this is my issue, and then provide the details so that the software developers can actually look at that and tell you, is it possible or is it not possible? Okay, so if you don't have a group, then I would just say if you're on your own, I would actually ask. I don't know what what your organization's appetite is for this, but I would actually ask. Maybe that's something that can be done. Maybe even if it's unofficial, say, hey, I'm a research administrator. I've noticed some things in Workday that I would, I could use some enhancements or redirection. Maybe there's other reports I should be looking at to accomplish this goal. Can we put together a small working group of RAs to analyze, evaluate, and give feedback so that maybe we can get either directed to the correct reports to do what we need, or is there a way for us to get those developed?
So I think there's also like a third challenge that you might run into, which is you're just going to get no traction on anything. So, and I have to be realistic on that one. Whereas, yes, we can talk to all the people we want to talk to. We can do the working groups. You can talk to your director. You can talk to everybody and their grandmother. And in the end, you may not have access to be able to do what you need to do, and it may just be suck it up, buttercup, and do whatever it is you need to do. And I have seen that happen as well. And so I want to like be mindful of when, like, 'cause I think the one way is we're working together. We're going to make this. It's going to take a while, but between IT and leadership and everybody, we'll figure it out. And we just need to figure out who the right people are and whatever. The other option is listen, we've done this. This is what you're living with. This is what we've got for you. Do your thing.
Right.
So in that case, actually, and this is it's not the fun part when people are telling you figure it out, but the fun part on the other side is actually figuring out, okay, great, that's okay. What reports exist? What do we have access to? And then what are we trying to get access to? What is it that we're trying to accomplish with what we currently have access to? And then leveraging that, and that's what's great about Workday. This is where the magic comes in, because now, as you notice, we just backed ourselves into a corner by talking about, okay, this option, that option, and now we're at the corner where people are like, well, no, we're not going to help you. Here's your reports, move on. With the way that Workday spits out data, you can create, well, Syra can create, I can't. And maybe you can also. I don't know where, but Syra's like a goddess when it comes to spreadsheets. So
I do
Syra,
love
the magician, can create an automated spreadsheet that will allow you to take whatever report you get to, and then take that and spit it out in another sheet that basically looks the way you want it to look, so that now you're able to do the work that you need to do. That typically is very nuanced. So if somebody in your organization happens to be very good at Excel and understands that kind of thing, then you can actually, I would actually start the conversation after you get to the point where where you feel like you're backed into a corner. Use that tactic, which is tell me what I have access to, and then have that person with Excel build the tool for you. Alternatively, you can also, that's what Syra does. Like, I don't do the spreadsheet customization, that's Syra's thing, but that's something that Syra can help with, right? You could be like, hey, alternatively, like, you can get a working group together within your research administrative group, bring in a Syra type person to consult with you, right? So it's like your group that's running the show, but the tool is being built by something else. So,
well, and I think I would also add that Workday has a lot of stuff that is not obvious. So a lot of times it's really just about understanding what you're looking for and telling someone, right? Like, oh, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And they may already have it. It's just not something that you know what the search parameter is, or how it's labeled. So I think a lot of this is actually already in Workday. It's just asking the question of how to get navigated to the right place so that you're getting the data out of it that you want. And then, of course, as Vanessa said, a lot of people are great with Excel. And so if you're looking for just, custom reports, I'm sure there's someone at your organization who can probably make a tool with the data coming out of Workday for you. And if not, there's obviously, tons of resources online, or, you can reach out to me or whoever. But I think that the real message is that chances are what you're looking for is already there. It's just somebody needs to go in and help you figure out where to find it.
Well, and that's the hardest part about switching in. Sorry, sis, I'm going to interrupt briefly.
Yeah.
Actually creating those new workflows and new systems. Because,
Yes.
I want you all to think about kids when they're learning how to brush their teeth, which is the most annoying fucking thing I've ever seen, okay? You give a kid a toothbrush and the thing, and they're like, ugh, what? And just getting it in the mouth and the whole thing, it just takes forever. And it's like, oh my God, kid, I want to go to bed, right? But over time, right, you teach them, they get the muscle memory. You could probably wake up in the middle, not even wake up, you could sleepwalk into the bathroom, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, brush your teeth, put it back, and go right back to bed, and do it all in your sleep without even realizing it, because your muscle memory is so in tuned. that's what a lot of the work is that we're doing. It's so muscle memory that that's fast. So anything else we do is going to seem really, really hard.
Yes.
Once you know what these new places are to look for things, the new systems, the new
nicknames,
names, it actually becomes 10 to 20 times faster. It's
Yeah.
so much more effective, efficient. It really is creating those new neural pathways, which I find very frustrating. But that's really like in any software migration, that's actually the way you're going to get to your fastest return is say, okay, get the group together to figure out what are our new pathways that we need to create to get where we need to go, and then build those systems as quickly as possible, because that's what creates the comfort.
Yeah. And and I think this is another really important thing. I think somebody was counting our metaphors earlier, so this is going to be another, kind of example. When I first started, I went on a weight loss journey several years ago and I lost 50 pounds, and I did it by walking outside, right? So like I really forced myself to be in the outdoors because when I got tired, I couldn't just turn off the treadmill. I had to turn around and get myself home. So it really kind of like gave me a little bit more accountability than I would necessarily have by myself. But anyway, the first day that I went out, I could only make it to my mailbox. I had high blood pressure. I had all these underlying health conditions. So it was very difficult for me physically. And I felt so defeated, right? Like just getting from my doorway to the mailbox seemed so difficult. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this. And then I said to myself, let's just do what we can and add a step or two every day and just see what happens, right? So that's what I did. Every day I would go outside and I would just walk one extra step. And then the next day I had a little bit more energy, I'd do 2 extra steps. Point being, at the end of a couple of months, I was doing 3 miles a day, right? And I lost 50 pounds. So navigating into a new system is kind of similar in that you're going to be incredibly frustrated when the process first begins. Nothing is going to work the way you expect it to. You're pulling reports you don't know how to pull. You're pulling the wrong report, doing a ton of work, and then realizing it's the wrong report. Someone retired a report, didn't tell you, and now there's a new version you didn't know about. There's going to be a ton of frustration, right? Even if your organization is super, super well planned, okay? Even if, what do they say, right? The best laid plans of mice and men, right? Expect that you're going to have problems, but also accept that just because it's a problem today, it's not going to be this way forever, right? It's just right now. And the more you play with it, the more you experiment with it, the more you're going to understand it, and the better you're going to perform, and the better the systems are going to work with you. So it does get better. And I think that's a really important thing, is that whatever you're experiencing in the beginning of the transition is not what it's going to feel like 6 months later. It's not forever. It's just for right now. And I think having that psychological preparation does help make it a little bit more palatable and a little less stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. 100%. I thought I'd restarted my computer and lost our notes.
That would be terrible. Another thing I would suggest, Vanessa, you and I should really do a post about this just so people have some maybe they can print out. Another thing I would really recommend before you do a transition is back to the NIH all personnel reports and financial reports that might be due to a sponsor. I would run those detailed reports for the people to see what they've worked in that budget period before you make the migration over, just so you have, before anyone touches anything, you have that data locked in so that if you lose something, if you can't run something for some reason, if you can't get access for some reason, you have it, you can pull it from your own records. So that's another thing I would just recommend is that, if you have financial reports that are due right on the cusp, I would say 0 to 3 months after migration, really be gathering that data ahead of time so that you have a record for yourself that you can compare to, versus trusting, just in case something happens, you have, a record from the old system before anyone touched it.
And Nancy mentioned that your Devanshi, I'm glad that helped, about the fact that it takes a while to get there, and it's the hardest in that first, it really is. The first turn of the wheel is the hardest with Workday. And it gets easier and easier. And I find this, and we're talking specifically about Workday today, but this is not, like Cyrus said, it's not unique to Workday. This is a process that we've been through many times, in many different types of software. Like, there was a time, when we migrated to PeopleSoft. Like, I remember that migration too.
I do.
Wait, somehow I managed to get, I think I had like real lipstick on my nose. Like, I was like, why is my nose all red all of a sudden? But I remember when he migrated to PeopleSoft, right? And God, it was so clunky, and I mean, it still is. It's never been my favorite piece of software. PeopleSoft was a promise that was just never delivered upon. And I feel like Workday has a lot more potential on that space. But I think the other thing for a lot of us, and having done so much cleanup over the years, I want to sort of like help with this as well. It's really easy to get panicked when you don't have access to your financials for a few months. There's all kinds of things. You're like, oh my God, what could possibly be going wrong? But the truth of the matter is, whatever goes wrong, you can clean up. Because like with as many times as we've done this, I've yet to run into a problem that we weren't able to sort out later, right? And so I think that's something that sort of just give you the opportunity to like alleviate some of that anxiety. Because I feel like the real fear that we have when we do these migrations is that some sort of a problem is going to happen that we can't fix. Some sort of a compliance thing is going to happen that's going to destroy everything. It's actually not going to be that bad. Like, you're going to run into problems. That's just the nature of the transition. But
Yep.
none of it's going to be so bad that you're not going to be able to fix it with another step or another action item or another thing that
Correct.
will just slowly, over time, as you do each of these things, refine your process more and more so that a year from now, you're actually wondering what you were doing, how you managed to
Right, we're like, how
be
did I
without
live
Workday for
before
so
this?
long. Yeah, and a lot of that is because it is really powerful. I cannot stress enough the power that exists within this software. Like,
Yeah.
um, going back, we talked about this briefly actually. So I want before we started, so about 1 hour ago exactly, we talked about this, but we hadn't actually gone live then. So I want to bring this part of the conversation back where some of you are going to find that Workday is not working as coolly as we say it does, and that it has some challenges. And it depends upon your organization and how much what modules they choose to implement and the company that they engage with. Because usually the way it works is Workday as a piece of software. They have partners that they work with who actually work on the implementation within organizations. So you're almost never working directly with Workday. I don't know that anybody actually works with Workday. You work with a Workday person who works with you. And that person is usually a secondary organization that has been certified in Workday implementations. And so they will then do that portion of it. Now, Workday has its own little modules. There's like, depending on whatever you want, they've got their own modules. And you've probably already seen them if you've been applying for jobs. Just about every one of them is now using a Workday module for that. You've got financial modules, you've got all these other modules. And depending on which ones you're and even within the financials, you've got your own little modules in there. There's a grant financials and a regular financials and so on. So depending on what features your organization wants to invest in, the output is going to look different. Which means that unless they do even if they do like the full Monty where they put all the money down and get every bell and whistle, you're going to have access to everything, but customizing your reports, your return, what you see, that is also going to take this process that we're talking about of doing the work to get ready, figuring out what information you're trying to access, what do you need, that's going to be required regardless of how much money they spend, how many modules you
Exactly.
implement, how great
Yeah.
the data is that comes out. This is actually what decides what that success level is because it helps you frame all of the infrastructure and it makes it easier and easier. So the good news is this, it actually doesn't matter what modules your organization picks. It really doesn't. Whatever it picks, the other side of the spreadsheet, you can figure it out how to spit it, how to translate it into what you need. But it's
Yes.
important because I think sometimes you'll be talking to someone and be like, "Oh my God, we have effort reporting," because Workday has an effort reporting module, right? And they just so you may not have to deal with this for much longer. You press a button, you get the effort. Poof. I wouldn't trust the data that comes over the changeover period. But like when you get a year later, you're gonna be able to just press buttons and get the effort, and bam, you're done.
Yep.
But if your organization does not get that, doesn't have that module, then you have to use the financials to do it. Then Syra, I already know you have a module in your spreadsheet to do that. So like Syra has a module. She'll show you. It's on her website. Go to her website. She'll download it.
I I love spreadsheets.
Oh my
I'm
God, it's
like,
amazing. So by the way, let me actually shameless plug for Syra here. Um, and the reason I'm shameless plugging for Syra is because I didn't make the spreadsheets and they're not on my website. Otherwise, I would really shameless plug for me. If you are migrating or to Workday, planning on migrating to Workday, think that you smell Workday in your future, go to Syra's website, Syra SVG Consulting.
uh, It's actually valleyconsulting.group.
Valleyconsulting.group. I'll put the link on the screen when the time
Yeah.
comes. But go to valleyconsulting.group, and two spreadsheets are up there that are amazing. One is her reconciliation spreadsheet, which is like all the Workday reconciliations. It's for day-to-day reconciliation. It's really good. It's amazing. And then the other one is the RPPR worksheet that basically will let you, has a whole lot of modules for the RPPR time. Am I right? Those are the two?
No, the RPPR one's not up there. The
Well,
NIH
then,
budget developers up there. NIH budget developers up there.
then message Tyre for that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think here's the thing too, is that, I would, yes, there's a template up there and, it's great, but I think that ultimately though, Workday has so much more automation power in Excel because it always spits out the same reports in the same order, right? In terms of columns and things like that. You can automate a lot of this stuff. And so you do need to know how to program in Excel, which, I love doing. But so that's something to also consider is that, the spreadsheet that's on my website is still very labor intensive manually for the individual who's doing the reconciliation, but there are ways to automate that process. And, you can reach out to me. But yes, and I will also add, Vanessa and I love Workday. We don't work for Workday. I feel
God,
like
yeah. Okay, so we don't work for Workday. We don't get paid for Workday.
We don't even know anyone at
get paid to
Workday.
do stuff, but we don't. They don't pay us. We're not commissioning by them or anything. But what we are is research administrators who know how hard it is to transition. And
Yes.
so the real goal for this was not to pitch Workday as much as it was to pitch a more easy transition. If they were using a different piece of software, we'd be doing a video for that. Because really it's about how do we make the research administrators' lives easier.
Yeah.
And this is an area where I honestly feel like it has so many thorns. It has a lot of thorns, but its rose is so beautiful.
Yes, indeed. So Patrick is saying the power of Workday has been one of our biggest challenges. We're 2.5 years in, keep finding that depending on how we run a report, we get 3 different answers to a question. Okay, yep. And we haven't been getting enough training to understand why we're getting 3 different answers and which answer is right. So I'm going to ask this question. You may or may not know the answer. I know that with some clients, what I found is that as reports were tweaked to be more accurate, the old versions of those reports were not deleted, but they weren't, because the upgrades happened in a new report, the old reports are going to look completely different. So is it possible that the reports that you're accessing, 2 of them might be unupdated versions, and so they really should have been deleted? And so you should be using whatever the current version of
I've definitely seen that where they have like there's like 3 different versions of the same report.
Exactly.
And I actually was dealing with this with a client the other day where the search parameters, they don't and it took us a while to kind of figure out what they had done, but it was basically about the dates, the way that the dates were being calculated in this one particular, and again, Patrick, your situation may be perfectly totally unique. So, and that all of them are usually unique in their own way. Right. And so I'm not saying any of this is your reason, but I think what we are saying is that there are actually a lot of different reasons why that may happen. And it depends on what it is. So if you have an example, I would love to just get on a call and take a look, and you do that with me. And then we can sort of see where it's coming, because there's a lot of different reasons why that may happen, and that does actually happen. And it was a big problem with one of my clients because they didn't know that there were 2 separate reports, so none of the research administrators knew there were 2 different reports. They looked identical. One had a period at the end, and one did not. And the guy put the period at the end to say, "Well, that's how I know it's the newer one." And I was like, "Yeah, but nobody else knows that. No one else knows that that's the one."
Exactly.
Yes, and that's going to be a systems issue. Right now, if it's a software issue, right? If it's like an actual, I'm going to run this report, use the exact same parameters, exact same time, then the question becomes, were there data migrations being occurred? Because the search that's programmed, you're telling it to do something. On the back end, it's searching a bunch of data. If somebody makes a change to let's say the header of one of those data, or anything, data columns, or any one of those things, then you think you're searching for the right thing, but it's searching something wrong on the back end, right? So the other question then becomes, is the answer you're getting now, does it remain consistent moving forward? The answer is no, then problematic. And then 2 is, which version of the search gives you the correct answer that you're expecting? But you mentioned that you're not sure which one is correct.
Right.
So, well, no, because like, but there's ways to do that, right? So then we go backwards and say, okay, what other two data points can we check it against? So we should talk about this offline, but I'm glad you brought it up because this is a chronic problem. It can be mitigated, but it's something that has to be worked through to figure out where is the actual problem coming from.
Yeah. Okay,
That is
well,
good.
it's
Okay, we're at 12:56. Sister, any last thoughts?
um yes. My last thought would be um change is hard, but a lot of this is about our perspective and our preparation. So use it as an opportunity to be excited, to look at things in a new way and have greater visibility into your work, while fully recognizing that any change is hard, right? Anytime you turn a ship, it's going to take some time, it's going to take some effort, but it doesn't mean that it's not worth it in the end. Keep your eye on the end goal, which is that once it is implemented, it may take 3, 6, 9, 12 months even, but once it's implemented and it's working flawlessly, it's going to make your life that much better and make you
Yep.
feel that much more confident in your job. So I would say, Simon Sinek talks about this a lot, is, how we frame our emotional response to things. Instead of saying, I'm very anxious, saying, I'm very excited. So yes, you might have some anxiety, which is to be expected during a big change, but I would encourage you to be excited about the prospects and the opportunities that are going to present themselves to you with a upgrade. It's like getting trading in your 1999 Honda that served you well, but maybe moving into, a brand new, Toyota Highlander, right? Like it might be different to get used to the drive, like how it feels, but in the end, you're going to be so happy you did it on that first super snowy day when it's icy outside. And then the second thing I would say is preparation is your best friend. So Manessa and I will work on a post, to kind of recap some of the things that you can do as the research administrator to really prepare yourself for that awesome launch. But prepare. The more prepared you are, the more successful your personal experience of the transition will be. Those are my closing thoughts. Sister?
Love it. My closing thought is if you're feeling anxious, so Cyra's going to say say it's excitement. That never works for me. So I'm going to give doesn't. Again, when people say it, I'm like, well, I'm not excited, Cyra. I'm not excited. Allie, my wife does it too. My wife's like, just feel excited. I'm like, I'm going to feel excited and be really pissed. So here's what I do instead. For those of you who are like, I'm anxious, I'm really anxious. The buffalo. They're the only animal when they see a storm on the plains, they run towards it.
Yep.
And they run towards it because if you run towards the storm coming at you, you will get through it faster. And so my life, this is recent, last 5 years. Because the excitement thing, because I tried the excitement thing and I know it works for a lot of people.
Yes.
For those of you it doesn't work for, just say, okay, I'm just going to run terrified into this storm.
Dash into the storm.
Just dash into it because then you'll be on the other side of it so fast, right? Because you're just, and then I'll go, look, the storm's behind me, right? Oh, surprise, the storm is behind me. And then we'll be on the other side where everybody's excited or also over it.
I have to say, though, I don't know if this logic works with like a tornado.
So buffalo do it though, right? And
But I am not a buffalo.
well,
I wonder how that would work. But again,
I'm also
metaphor.
not sure if the buffalo, like, do they all live, right? That's the other question. Like, do they all run through it, and do we just have to be okay with the losses along the way? So this analogy may have been absolute shit. But
I love it. I think it's great, actually.
right now, listen, we're going to lose some of us along the way.
Yeah, but it's going to be okay.
It's going to be fine. Okay. The rest of us will make it. But listen, if you have any work, if your organization is going through a transition of some kind related to Workday, I mean, or any, honestly, in research administration, like any transition site, I've been through all of them. But specifically, our conversation today is about Workday. You want some help. You want to talk about it a little bit, have a problem you're specifically dealing with. Cyra and I both have links to our Calendly. You can reach out to us. You can email us. But this is something we really love doing. We'll do more sessions on this. If you have specific questions that you want to deal with, we can do a working Zoom. In the end, Workday's coming.
Yes.
Coming, everybody. Workday's coming. And so we can either embrace it and find a way to make it work for us faster, quicker, so that we're just move ahead and have a great time, or we can make it more difficult. I will admit I have made it more difficult on myself in the past. I choose love now. I choose love. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Happy New Year to
Bye,
everyone.
sister. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Now I figured